Hello and welcome to another video on wheel settings. Today we're on Gran Turismo Sport, and I've recently switched from using a Logitech G29 to a Fanatec CSL Elite wheelbase with the P1 wheel and the V3 pedals. So what this means is we now have a number of different settings that we can play with on the Fanatec Tuning Menu on the wheel itself. So what I'm going to do is run you through the settings I use and give a quick explanation of what each one does, and then we'll have a look at how that affects the in-game settings too. Okay, so here are my settings. So the first one you see on the wheel will be S_1, 2, 3 or 5, and this is basically a preset save that you can use for each racing game. So for example, you can adjust your settings on one game and save it as setup 1, and then you go on to another game and save your settings for setup 2, and that way you don't have to adjust them every time you go onto a new game, and there's 5 different setups that you can save. So the next setting is the SEN, which is the sensitivity, and this is basically the maximum wheel rotation. So on GT Sport I have this set at auto because we use a number of different cars and the game adjusts as necessary. So FF is the force feedback, we have that set on 100%. DRI is the drift mode setting, and we've got that on -0.3, which is a setting I found on the Fanatec recommended settings page. And the drift mode, basically, if you're doing a lot of drifting in the car, you might want that positive, and it basically assists you turning the wheel quickly, so you can counter steer, slide, basically. But for racing, you don't really want that in the positive, so -3 for us. The FEI is the force effect intensity, and we have that set to 60, and that's basically the intensity of the effects, such as curbs, bumps in the road, that sort of thing. FOR is the force, so the force of the wheel. This can be adjusted from off up to 120 in 10 increments of 10, and basically this changes how resistive the wheel is. So this also governs the spring SPR and damper settings in GT Sport, but you can adjust those individually in other games. The spring is basically the strength of the force pulling the wheel back to the centre, and the damper is basically the strength of the resistance turning the wheel. So on Gran Turismo we only have to adjust the force, and I've got that down to 90. Then we've got the shock, which is the strength of the shock and vibration motors inside the steering wheel. I believe on the P1 wheel we don't have vibration motors, so we've just left that on 100. But coming to the two on the right there, we've got the brake level indicator. Okay, so this is basically a rumble that you'll get through the wheel or through the brake pedal if you've got a rumble motor on the brake, to signify what level of braking you're at. So we've got that set to 100, and that basically means when we reach 100% brake pressure, we will get a rumble through our brake pedal on the V3 pedals. If you had a vibration motor in the steering wheel, you'd get the same thing, so you would receive a rumble through the wheel once you achieve 100% brake pressure, if that's set to 100%. We've got it on 100 so that we know when we hit that maximum braking we don't need to push the pedal any harder. Obviously you could have that on 50% if you wanted, you know, personal preference, or you can adjust it so you feel it whenever you brake. And then the final one we've got is the BRF, which is the brake force. So I've put 2 stars next to this one because this is very, very highly individual and will depend how you've calibrated your brake pedal. So we're obviously using a load cell pedal, and the brake force allows us to adjust on the fly using the steering wheel the amount of force we need to put through the pedal to achieve maximum brake pressure. So at the moment we've got this set to 96, which means that when we calibrated our pedal on the PC to determine 100%, we're currently using 96% of that pressure to achieve full braking pressure in the game. Okay, ideally, really, you want to calibrate it a bit higher on the PC and have it a little bit lower in the game, because then if you need to adjust for another game, you can then increase it a little bit further if you want to. So let's take a little look at how that affects our in-game settings then. We've now got the force feedback sensitivity on 10. Just so I like the feeling it feels on 10. As soon as you start turning the wheel, you get a little bit of feedback. Obviously, if you're finding the car's quite twitchy on the straights, then you can lower this a little bit. But for us, we really enjoying having it on 10. And then we've got the force feedback max torque on 3. So we've lowered this down a little bit from what we used to use on the G29, but that's where we can adjust our force settings on the wheel itself. We have obviously 100% on the force feedback on the wheel, and we've got force still quite high on 90, so we've had to bring the max torque in-game down a little bit, and 3 feels about right. You know, you can bring the max force down on the wheel and then increase the feedback torque in the game, but to be honest, as long as you adjust it by the sort of same amount, it feels about the same. So for us, this is kind of what works. So those are my settings. If you've got any questions, please leave them in the comments below. And if you found this video useful and you enjoyed it, please give us a like and feel free to subscribe. It really helps the channel. And if you've got any suggestions for new videos, please comment below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you again for the manufacturer series round 1 sometime at the end of the week.